Good morning. This is October the 13th, Friday, 2023, and we are in BBIS first semester compulsory English class. And yesterday we started reading the text Fun, Jew, Free, rhymes with Fun, Jew, Free by Manjushree. And I was explaining the lines, and I remember that I talked about the narrative viewpoint. I said it is first person singular. There is an I that is telling us the story. And I also told that this I is the writer herself. This kind of writing is known as, we call this non-fiction. Such writing is known as non-fiction writing. In non-fiction writing, you read about real people, you read about real places, and you read about real events. So this Manjushree is a real person. This Manjushree is Manjushree, right? The Kathy we read, the Dara we read, they're all real people who lived once in Canada or who might be living even today. So non-fiction deals with real people. Places, she talks about Canada and the city, town where she lived, that's a real place. And events, like she begins by telling that she once visited a hospital where the receptionist could not pronounce her name correctly, and she describes this receptionist as middle-aged woman with an unreadable origin. So this event, the visit to the hospital, is a real event, right? So non-fiction is about real things. Now another interesting thing is that, be careful as you walk, this non-fiction is creative. This non-fiction is creative. In what sense is it creative? You will see that there is a lot of imagination used in this writing, right? This is creative because it uses a lot of imagination. This is creative also because it uses a lot of emotion, right? There is very good use of language. There are metaphors in this writing. There are metaphors and other figures of speech. So yesterday, we had read section 1, and I also talked about the concept of kairos, if you remember. I said kairos refers to the situation. Kairos refers to the time. Like I said, the writer talks about 1970s, she talks about 1980s, she talks about 1990s, right? And she talks about American president, and she describes the circumstances, the political situation, cultural situation, all that is called kairos. Kairos means opportunity, when you say something or do something, right? This is what I talked yesterday. Okay. Then I moved to section 2, I remember, and I told you that from section 2, the narration switches into past simple tense. It was the early 70s. This is remarkable. So up to section 1, she uses present simple tense, right? In section 1, she uses present simple tense, and she portrays a scene in a hospital. She is sitting waiting for the doctor, and the receptionist calls her name. This first section where she portrays a scene, it sets the scene for the narrative. And if you see, the story is like a circle. Let me show you how. For example, the story opens in the hospital with the receptionist, and the story ends in the hospital with a doctor. So in the beginning, it is the receptionist who cannot pronounce her name. At the end, you will see in page number 10, it is the doctor who has difficulty pronouncing the name. So the story opens in the hospital and closes in the hospital. In story writing, we call something as framing device. Hold my hand. So look, through my palm we get connected, right? So it is the hands that connect us together, right? Framing device is a technique to connect different events in a story together. And you know, in this story, the hospital is used as a framing device. The hospital is used as a framing device. Frame, what is a frame? This is a frame. Look, this side, this side, this side, and this side. Look, these four sides, four angles of the frame, they bring everything together, right? They put it together. So just as the four angles of the frame bring unity in this device, in this tool, in this board, in a story also, there is some technique that connects all the events together. So Manjushree tells a lot of things in these 10 pages. And all these lot of things, something about Nepal, something about embassy, something about Ronald Reagan, something about Sri Lanka, something about Philippines, something about Canada, something about Kathy, something about Dara, something about sex, something about kissing, something about Tom, something about summer vacations, so many things. And all these things are woven together, put together, brought together, connected together by this framing device of the hospital. So we can say she uses a space as framing device. The hospital is described in the opening scene, and the hospital is described in the closing scene. And do you see what comes between the opening and closing? It is all memory. Look, from section 2, you have past tense, past simple, and it was the early 1970s. So the narrator goes back to her memory. This is an example of nostalgia. And do not forget that nostalgia or remembrance of the past is a feature of diasporic writing. And this story is an example of diasporic writing. What is a diasporic writing? Diasporic writing is a writing written by someone who is not living in their country of origin, who are living in a foreign country. If you go tomorrow and live in Canada for 20 years, and then after 20 years you start writing your memories, that becomes a diasporic writing. But if you live in Nepal, being a Nepali, you write in Nepal, you are not a diasporic writer. So diaspora is a group of people living in the country other than their origin country. So as I show you certain features of, let me take you back and just remind you here. Yesterday I told you how Diasporic writing is about identity. And I showed you how her name is mispronounced and the whole thing is start. Now I give you my own example. I spoke a number of languages in class to show you how language creates identity, how dress creates identity, how food creates identity, how your cultural practices create identity, how documents create identity. Identity is created in multiple ways. When I get to the traffic police, he says, show me the license. So I have to take out the license. So here it is this license that creates my identity, documentary identity. When I come to your class, you never said, Divakar sir, show me your ID card. No, you never say. You know me biologically. You look at me, you know me. Right? Then politics, I will show you. Let me refer. In many paragraphs, Manjushree Thapa talks about Nepalese embassy in America. And what she tells is that Nepalese government at that time could not give enough money to the embassy. Therefore, the embassy had economic financial problem. And she says that we were very poor in America. If you count dollar-wise, we were poor, she says. But if you count Nepali money, we got a lot of money. But that in America, you don't spend Nepali money, you spend dollar. And our salary, my papa's salary was not good, so we had to accommodate a lot of times because we didn't have enough money, she says. And she talks other political things also. Culture. Now, she tells a lot about Canadian culture. She tells a lot about American culture. She also talks about Nepali culture, and she compares, and she says that she never wanted to be a Nepali girl. Never. Why? Why she did not want to be a Nepali girl? Because she says that Nepalese girls are submissive. They are shy, traditional, and therefore Nepalese girls don't have that sense of freedom which I'm looking for. And then she says that I want to be a boy. This is a problematic statement. But we should understand that when she says I want to be a boy, she is not saying that I want to change my genitals. No, that's not the point. When she says I want to be a boy, her meaning is I want to enjoy the same freedom that boys do enjoy. Because she has seen her own brother, she has seen many boys enjoying freedom, doing things which girls are not expected to do. So being a girl, she feels that limitation. And she says, I want to be a boy. And she says that the Swedish tennis player was my role model. I wanted to be like him. So she talks about identity, politics, culture. And remember, diasporic writing has all these themes. Diasporic writing has the theme of identity, politics, culture. Another, alienation. Look, time and again, she says that though she was with her family, though she was with friends in school, college, campus, but often she felt that she was alone. She felt that she was alone. A sense of alienation. Diasporic writing has this characteristic because people are not in the root culture. They are in a foreign culture. And they have language problems, they have cultural problems, and at home they have one culture, outside of them another culture, and when they come home, she speaks Nepali. When she come home, her mother teaches her Nepali customs and cultures. For example, once she tried to use cosmetics, lipstick, cosmetics, and the mother says, no, you shouldn't use any cosmetics before marriage. The mother says only married girls use cosmetics. No, you won't use. Right? We can easily guess that at home she might have been asked to follow menstruation prohibitions also. We can guess, though she doesn't write clearly, but we can guess. So all these things, these tensions, the tension between home culture and school culture, this creates a sense of alienation. Then nostalgia. Because you can see right in the second section, she says it was 1970s. She goes back to the past, remembers. Then loneliness, search for identity. This is the theme, central theme. Again and again she says, who am I? Am I Nepali? Am I American? At one point she says she felt as if she was half American and half Nepali. Then again she says she felt as if she was neither American nor Nepali. So this question, मैं कौन हूँ? मैं कहाँ से आया हूँ? क्या मैं भारतीय हूँ? या मैं नेपाली हूँ?
What's wrong with being only a human being?
What's wrong with?
Being only a human being.
That's a good question. That's a great question. I appreciate the question. You said, what's wrong with being only a human being? Such a sincere question. Look, if we were really able to look at ourselves as human beings, we won't have Hamas and Gaza and Palestine case today. Right? Gaza, not Gaza. Gaza. The Gaza is, what do you call it? Strip. Gaza Patti. It's a land at the border of Israel where Palestinians live. So your idea, what about living just as human being is good, but do you see, not in animals, other animals, but human beings label themselves as identities, right? I have one group in my Facebook, they are friends, that group's name is Geneva. Yeah, it appeared 5 years back in my Facebook. Some of my students sent a request to me from Geneva page. And I accepted because they were my students. And then I inquired, what's this? And they said, Geneva means we Nevars. So they identified themselves as Nevars and they come together, right? Look, they create an identity around Nevari culture, right? And then in Nepal recently, you have seen how Rais get together, how Mughals get together, right? So we have racial, ethnic identities based on race, ethnicity, caste, etc., right? Culture. So your question is good. Why think one as American and Nepali? Why not think as human being? If I met Manjushree Thapa, I'll ask that question to her. You can find her Facebook page. She lives in Kathmandu right these days. She's in Kathmandu. You can go to Facebook page and just send her a message that we were reading your story in the class and we had this question. Why couldn't you think yourself as a human being? Why you thought as an American or Nepali? And let's see what answer she gives you. I'll appreciate if you can contact her and communicate with her. Okay. So I said that search for identity, right? Then internal, external conflict. Look, internally, she's a girl, right? And once, when she was 14, a 20-year boy kisses her. Then he proposes her. He says, I want to marry. And she says, no, it's not possible. Then he says, if you don't marry me, I'll commit suicide. This is what boys do, I don't know. like Keshav and Prema, right? So she describes that. And then she says that, after that, I began to wear a dress that would hide my female identity. I decided to look like boys outside so that boys won't propose me, thinking I'm a boy. And once he says that when I had my first menstruation, the family had a ritual, celebration. And then I was put on my father's lap as a daughter. And my father put me on his lap and he said, from today you are a woman. And she says, I felt mortified. I felt as if I'm dead because I didn't like the whole procedure. So internal conflict as a growing teenage, and that conflict, in my opinion, is about sex, because she's growing and she has a conflict about how to handle all this, right? Then external conflict, there is. For example, externally at home, they have Nepali culture. At one point, she says that in the embassy, in the summer vacation particularly, many Nepali families came to meet their families, and she didn't like Nepali people around. At one point, she says, once I was in a museum, I guess, and where two Nepali people came with Dhaka topi, and she saw the Nepali guy Dhaka topi. She felt so bad, she just passed out to avoid meeting him. And she says, for a long time, I did not like Nepali people around. I never befriended them. Then finally she says, toward the end of the story, that once we had a Dasai celebration with Nepalese, then we formed a group with Nepalese people and we began to talk. And she says, finally, I resolved this tension. So you see, as I was reading her narrative, I was furious with her. As I was reading her story, I was very angry with her. And even if I met her, I would ask her these questions, if I met her. So these are the elements, right? Xenophobia, look, she says she doesn't like Nepalese.